Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be going over the set destruction tracker for a bunch of different Pokemon sets. And just to kind of quickly break down what all of this data means, basically what this looks at is the set, a specific card that gets graded, the population of that card, the hit rate, so how likely it is if you're to rip open a single pack that you would get this card. And using all of that data combined, we can get a kind of average estimate as to, how many packs of this specific thing has been opened. Um, I believe it was inspired by Anon TCG, just kind of doing some very, very rudimentary, math to kind of figure this out. And guys, remember, very, very, rough estimates here. We have no idea how close these numbers are at because Pokemon is probably never going to give this data out. And these are all estimations based on population reports, right? So it doesn't necessarily take into account that some cards are worth grading more than others. And so that kind of naturally means that maybe some cards will be graded more than others due to either popularity. Maybe the gem rate is easier, so it's actually easier to grade those cards and get a 10, which means more people will do that. There's a lot of different factors that goes into this, so don't take this for gospel, but I think knowing this data can kind of give you a better idea as to what are the most popular sets and what sets we should be investing into, especially if you are a sealed investor like myself. You want to grow your collection, but you don't necessarily want to bet on random singles to grow your collection worth. I definitely think this might be a good tool to look at. So let's, just go over a few lines just to understand what we're looking at, right? So we have the set, we have the specific card. So this is the Charizard Special Illustration Rare, the Sunzard. There's around 70,000 pop of this, which is absolutely insane. And I know a lot of you guys might be concerned looking at that and being like, should I buy a 151 Charizard PSA 10 if there's that many? It is worth a good amount still. But I think we're in an era where pop reports don't necessarily matter that much. Now, for certain cards that are very hype driven, maybe, right? Like if there's a huge supply of them and people only like it because they see dollar signs, they don't actually like the card or the artwork at all, then yeah, I could see that kind of, being a bad investment or a bad time to buy in. But honestly, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to buy a 151 Charizard in PSA 10 right now because 151 seems to be one of the most popular sets. It seems like just the pack value keeps, increasing. So I don't think, the population tells the entire story, but it does give us some insight. But anyway, based on this, it seems like 160 million packs of 151 have been opened, estimated. Um, and I'm not sure what this is sorted by. I think it's sorted by, let's see, maybe percent change over, no, I don't know what they use. I don't know what the default sorting is, but let's sort this by the estimated number of packs opened. Bam. Let's see what we get. Okay, that's actually the opposite way. Obviously, Destined, if you saw there, Destined Rivals is obviously the least opened just because they're, it just came out. There's not that many. But yeah, obviously you can see, the less popular sets, Astral Radiance, Stellar Crown, Shrouded Fable, Chilling Reign, Journey, Paradox, Battle Styles, these ones are going to tend to be on the lower side, and also depends on how old the set is. So like Vivid Voltage, I think is a worse set than Journey Together, but obviously Journey Together is much more recent when it comes to comparing that to Vivid Voltage. But ultimately, we obviously do want to be investing into sets that people love ripping open. So let me go back and turn this on. Okay. Evolving Skies is, by this estimation, the most opened set. I think this only includes Sword and Shield, or Sun and Moon, actually, because I saw Unified Minds in there. I think this only includes like some Sun and Moon up to current eras. So I don't know if this tracks all the way back into like super old eras, but anyway, it's still very good data. So Evolving Skies is at the very top. And what does that tell us? Well, it does kind of make sense. It's a much older set. It's one of the oldest Sword and Shield sets with alt arts. And a lot of people love grading the cards in it. Obviously, the Moonbreon, the Rayquaza, a lot of the other evolutions, the Dragonite. It's got a lot of stuff in there. And so it makes sense that Evolving Skies is one of the most opened sets, just by pure estimation. 600 million packs, absolutely insane. And I don't think we're going to see this, go down anytime soon in terms of Evolving Skies, price points because it is out of print at this point. People love ripping it. It is one of the more popular sets to rip on stream. If you see rip and shippers and whatnot. So this is why I've been advocating to buy as much Evolving Skies as you possibly can. I do genuinely think it is an amazing set. Next, we get Brilliant Stars. Brilliant Stars again, one of the more recent sets. Looks like the Charizard V is graded quite a lot. Population of around 30,000. By the way, they use the Umbreon VMAX for the pop report on Evolving Skies. I think they try and use the chase card for every single one, which I would prefer if they used the top 5 cards and then rounded it based on that, just because I do think if a chase card is very, very popular, it could end up getting graded more than average. Like, for example, do I think Silver Tempest is ripped more than Crown Zenith? Not necessarily. I just think that Lugia V tends to be graded more than Garatina V Star, if that makes sense. And so I don't know if I necessarily buy that Silver Tempest is open more than Crown Zenith. But in any case, let's keep going down the list. Brilliant Stars is up here. I think Brilliant Stars is an amazing set. People love ripping it open. It has a lot of fun chase cards. Charizard obviously being one of them. And yeah, I think it's still a solid investment. It looks like the estimated number of packs open is 300 million. Silver Tempest, again, for this revising, I actually don't think Silver Tempest belongs all the way up here. I think the chase card is maybe lifting it up a bit, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it is genuinely just people love ripping Silver Tempest. It is one of the cheaper packs to get right now, and so maybe this is a buying signal to buy some Silver Tempest. Next, you have Crown Zenith. This is one that I've been advocating for since day one. Crown Zenith, I think, is one of the best sets Pokemon has ever made. Pull rates are fantastic. It's an amazing ripping experience, which means more people are going to rip it more, insanely often. And that's pretty obvious. If you go to any rip and ship stream, you will see that people love ripping Crown Zenith. They're asking about Crown Zenith over and over again. And as the price continues to go up, I think we're going to see amazing returns on Crown Zenith. I do think that the rate at which people are ripping open product has a huge influence on the scarcity and demand for that product, obviously. So I actually think Crown Zenith, personally, I feel like if we included the top 5 chases that were graded, I think we would probably see it higher. Again, I don't know how you would do this, to get as close of a number as you can. It's all rough estimates, so it is hard. But yeah, I think Crown Zenith, it's kind of crazy that it is up here, considering that it is a very, it's the latest Sword and Shield set, and there was a ton of it printed. So I do think there's still tons of room for it to grow. If you don't have any Crown Zenith, guys, definitely be picking it up. Next, we have Lost Origin, the Garatina V. Again, I've been talking about Lost Origin. I think it's an amazing set. I really think people should be picking it up if possible. Next, we have Surging Sparks. This is surprising to see. This is, insanely high. I guess because the hit rate is so hard for the Pikachu EX, and it has an insane amount of graded copies out there. It seems like 170 million packs, have been opened of Surging Sparks. More than 151. That's crazy. Is that real? Huh, I don't know. Like, intuitively, I feel like 151 would be more open than Surging Sparks. But perhaps Pokemon really did just print, Surging Sparks to another level because they think this is what caused the huge demand spike. Perhaps that's why the booster box price has not, reached the level of like Destined Rivals, let's say. Or even Paldea Evolved. Surging Sparks is an amazing set. Maybe they just printed a ton of it, right? And so I don't know. Maybe we should buy more Surging Sparks. Personally, I'm still kind of holding off. I do have a good position Surging Sparks. I was able to buy it a little earlier, thankfully. And so I'm kind of just holding on to what I have. I think if you're gonna buy anything from this set, I think the Piece ETB is a good way to go. Next, we have the Celebrations set. Actually surprised that this has a lot of people opening it, but it does make sense now that the top chases are starting to get a little bit more valuable. People are actually going to start ripping it. For a while, Celebrations, the collection, I forget what it's called, but I think it's a classic collection that contains cards like the original base set Charizard with the stamp, Mega Rayquaza, Mew EX, Umbreon Gold Star, stuff like that. Those are popular chases, but they just weren't that expensive, and now I think we're getting to a point where they are actually jumping up in price a little bit. People do want the artworks, the original artworks, and they're kind of settling with the Celebration stamp. So yeah, Celebrations I don't think is a bad buy. We still haven't reached the 30th anniversary, so I think any time before that is honestly a fine time to buy Celebrations. I think you'll do well over the next year. Next we have 151. I think this is higher. I'm not gonna lie. It just feels wrong that it is this low. I think 151 is probably the most popular set from Scarlet and Violet era. I do think it's probably going to perform either the best or the second best compared to Prismatic Evolutions. And yeah, I think it's a phenomenal set. I think 151, you definitely should be buying some of it. Next, we have Paldean Fates. Very, very interesting. Paldean Fates is a very popular set. I didn't know they printed that much of it, or people just love ripping it that much. Genuinely insane. I mean, the Bubble Mew is a very iconic card. Perhaps that's why, it is up here, just because people like grading it more. And it does take into account the hit rates, but as I said before, I do think how iconic that card is, and how much people value that card and want to send to get graded is going to just naturally affect these numbers and the estimations. Um, but yeah, Paldean Fates, I think it's an amazing set. It's personally my favorite set. I love the way you pull cards. It feels like you're pulling baby shinies and illustration rares and special illustration rares pretty easily. It's a very fun opening experience. Um, I would definitely recommend buying the Japanese version, Shiny Treasure, if you're just looking to have fun. It's great. Um, Next, we have Twilight Masquerade. Greninja EX is the chase card here. It looks like 150 million packs around so have been opened. Does kind of corroborate, with the fact that Twilight is, kind of increasing price right now. It is a very, very good set. It's been making some absolutely insane moves. I think the box is like 280 or something. It reached a high of like what 300 or maybe it was 290 or 280. But yeah, it really jumped out of nowhere. But I think if we look at this data, it starts to paint a bigger picture of maybe Twilight is actually a really good set. I only have a few boxes of Twilight because I just didn't believe in it back in the day, and I am regretting it a little bit. I don't know if I want to buy in right now. I'm a little wary of reprints, but we'll see. Next, we have Shining Fates. This is interesting. So Shining Fates was very overhyped when it first came out. Tons of people were chasing this Charizard VMAX. It was really expensive when it first came out. Now it's kind of laughed at. People don't really want Shining Fates. It was overprinted. It was just printed into the ground. And you can kind of see it reflected. Like right now, Shining Fates has a pretty bad set value, yet the number of packs opened is insanely high. I mean, if we just take a look, let's see, Shining Fates. I mean, we're talking like $400 set value, right? Really not much to chase here except for the Charizard VMAX, which, look, it's a cool looking card, but it just really doesn't hold a candle to a lot of the other Sword and Shield sets. So I would not be buying Shining Fate. Same with Darkness Ablaze. I think it has a very similar story. Darkness Ablaze. Also, you're just chasing this Charizard, which is even worse looking in my. So yeah, a Champion's Path again, same kind of story. So we'll skip that. Prismatic Evolutions. We're at 100 million opened, which, guys, that is absolutely insane for a set that just came out pretty recently. And as you can see, it looks like the hit rate for the Umbreon almost just as hard as the Evolving Skies. Looks like only, what, 1 in 1800 versus 1 in 1400. So maybe, not the exact same odds, but, it still feels like a pretty impossible thing to pull, pretty hard thing to pull. Obviously, the population of this Umbreon will keep going up over time. The price will keep going down, so I wouldn't be FOMOing into buying this Umbreon just yet. Keep waiting, guys. The Prismatic Evolution singles are going to keep going down in price. As more supply gets, added, and as Pokemon kind of prints this into the ground. And it seems that they love to print specialty sets way more than main sets. As we're seeing with 151 and Celebrations, maybe Surging Sparks is a bit of an outlier, but I do think this is caused by a lot of people just getting into grading because, Surging Sparks kind of like launched the boom. So I think Surging Sparks is kind of an outlier. I'm not going to lie. We'll see, though. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think Prismatic Evolutions, yeah, it's a good buy. Obviously, PC ETBs I think are still a buy. As I always say, though, I believe Pokemon Center still has that thing up on their website saying that their more inventory might come soon. So you could hold on, but I do think you should buy some PC ETBs if you have none for Prismatic, and just throw them in your closet. In 5 years, you will thank me. Next, we have Paldea Evolved. Now, they use the Magikarp. And I don't think that's a great indicator simply because the Magikarp, it's very hard to get a 10. So I think people are going to be a little more picky about the Magikarps they sent. I don't think they're just sending any Magikarp. And the majority of the Magikarps that get open and get ripped open are not going to be 10 quality, and people can maybe pretty easily identify that. Versus like Evolving Skies, if you pull the Umbreon VMAX, it has a pretty high chance to gem rate. I think this is hidden from me. Oh no, yeah, you can see it right here. So the gem rate, is 70% for Evolving Skies, but let's check out the Paldea Evolved one. It's around 18% for a PSA 10 gem rate, right? So, I think that might contribute to the numbers being a little bit lowered. I think Paldea Evolved is probably opened more than this. If I had to wager, I would actually probably put it on the same level of Twilight, if not more, because it's a little older. I think Paldea Evolved is an amazing. I think it's an amazing set, and I definitely think you should buy some of it if you don't have any. I've been a big advocate of the ETBs personally, and you can see. I mean, yes, it's an illustration rare. The Magikarp, is an illustration rare, but it's crazy that one in around 468 is still pretty hard odds to pull something. I mean, it's still like somewhat comparable to things like the Paldean Fates Bubble Mew, and that's not the easiest thing to pull, right? So I think Magikarp is honestly a really good chase card. I made a whole video on if illustration rares are actually better chase cards because of the harder gem rate, and because it just generally can be harder to sometimes pull a special or a specific illustration rare compared to a special illustration rare. But yeah, I think Paldea Evolved is a great buy. Next we have Obsidian Flames, one of the most ripped sets. I think people love ripping Obsidian Flames. Ironically, it doesn't have the best chase cards, but hey, it is a Charizard set. People love Charizard, so maybe it is worth buying into. Next we have Fusion Strike, and interesting. I think his hit rates might be wrong, because as we all know, a ton of the hits were stolen at a point. Did that affect the overall population and the overall hit rate enough to warrant any kind of meaningful change in the data? I don't know, actually. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. It's an interesting case. I'm surprised Fusion Strike is so low. I feel like people do enjoy opening it, but it is one of the lower ones here. I think it's worth buying. Maybe it was just not printed as much, but I don't know. I feel like it was sitting on store shelves for a while. Like, I remember I could have bought Fusion Strike ETBs like for retail, but I just didn't because I thought nobody liked the set. So I don't know. It's an interesting case. It might be somewhat manipulated due to the fact that somebody stole all the hits, but yeah, I think Fusion Strike is still a good set to invest in. Next, you have Hidden Fates. Interesting they're using the Jesse and James card. I don't even think that's the top hit of the set. I mean, I did mention the Jesse and James card from Hidden Fates. I do think it's a very good card, but yeah, it's not really the top hit. Not yet, at least. The Charizard, Shiny Charizard is the top hit. But maybe Jesse and James is just the most graded card from this set. Maybe that's what they use. I don't really know how this works, or why they choose that. But it looks like Hidden Fates is not necessarily one of the more opened sets necessarily. Yeah, I picked up a Hidden Fates ETB recently. I know I kind of missed the wave. I missed a lot of the gains, but I still do believe in the set. I think the set is pretty stacked if you all things considered. You have Tag Team Birds. The ETB comes with the Glass Stained promo, which on its own now is like a really expensive card. So it's kind of already paying for some of the box. You can pull. I think this Jesse and James cards is still underrated in my eyes. I do think it's a really, really fun card. And you just have a bunch of fun shiny Pokemon. Great Cynthia trainer card. Yeah, I think this set is amazing. And I think it was only slept on because it was printed so heavily, which also kind of makes me surprised that it's not up there in one of the more open sets, but it is what it is. Then we get down to Temporal. Looks like Raging Bolt is the most graded card, perhaps. But at the same time, I don't know. I think Raging Bolt is not a very popular Pokemon, and so I think using that as a metric for the destruction tracker might not be the best. But hey, Temporal Forces doesn't seem to be the most popular set either, so maybe that makes sense. And we kind of speed through these older ones. So Vivid Voltage, obviously, wouldn't really recommend investing in this, but when it was popular, people loved grading this card. I think there's probably way more Raging Bolts out there in the world. People are just not grading them. Battle Styles, 40 million packs open. Tyranitar V has around 13k population. I think Battle Styles is actually still worth buying at $200. It's simply just because the price. I think any set with alt arts any Sword and Shield set with alt arts I think is worth buying. So that's Battle Styles and up. Um, and Battle Styles is in such a unique position because it is so overlooked. It has a pretty low set value, but the booster box is only $200. You have a chance of literally pulling a almost $200 card, and if graded, more, right? Like, what is the PSA 10 price of this? Like 500, right? So I think this will correct over time. I do think Battle Styles is not the worst buy, maybe not the best buy, but I don't think it's the worst thing. Realistically, anything you buy sealed and just keep hold, it's gonna be fine. But yeah. Anyway, Paradox Rift is next. I think it's a decent set. I don't know if I'd be prioritizing it. Journey Together. Actually surprised that this is kind of up here because Journey Together came out very recently, right? If we compare it to Paradox Rift, I think Journey Together actually has a good amount of chance to move up in the rankings. Perhaps they're just printing more of these later sets, so that's why it's still so high. But dude, I think Journey Together is somewhat of a sleeper set. And I don't think I would be sleeping on these, especially the enhanced booster box that come with the box topper, guys. That is a very, I believe, slept on product right now because if they don't end up reprinting that, then the box will have a premium. Next, we have Chilling Reign. You guys know I'm a Chilling Reign hater. Not really a big fan of this set, and it seems to be literally the lowest of Sword and Shield. Sorry, no, Astral Radiance is the lowest, not including Go or Base. Just talking about alt art sets. So yeah, Chilling Reign, not really my favorite. I think it makes sense to put on the same tier as Astral Radiance. I actually like Astral Radiance more because of the trainer gallery, but yeah, I don't think you're going wrong buying Chilling, to be honest. It's gonna go up, but it is what it is. Next we have Shrouded Fable. Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's not the worst thing to buy a Shrouded Fable. Gem rate of the Persian around 37% actually, so it is somewhat hard to grade this Persian. If it ends up, continuing to be a decent chase card, maybe it is a good time to buy. Maybe it's in the same position as Battle Styles, but personally, I'm just not really a fan of Shrouded Fable. It does just kind of feel like, a very, very mid set. Like Pheasantipity and Monkey Dory are, I believe, only really popular because they're very competitively viable. Like, why is a Darkness Energy and Earthen Vessel? I think there's also another very viable competitive item. Like, why are these the most top chases? I don't know. It doesn't feel like we have great fundamentals with Shrouded Fable, but it is what it is. It is a very cheap price, so maybe it's worth buying now. Stellar Crown, really, really far down. I'm a little surprised, honestly. I thought this would be higher up, but fair enough. Maybe Stellar Crown is also another set worth avoiding. And we're not really going to talk about Destined Rivals just because it's too new to really be judging here. But it seems to have pretty good numbers for just having came out recently. So yeah, that's going to be probably the list. I'm going to skip over base and some of these like Sun and Moon sets. But yeah, I think this kind of seems to confirm what we already know. The most ripped sets are the most popular sets: Evolving Skies, Crown Zenith, Brilliant. I'm a little hesitant on Silver Tempest being some of the more ripped sets, but I do think Silver Tempest is a good investment nonetheless. Some cool things that we learned. What do you guys think about this, destruction tracker of packs? How accurate is it? Are there any things that maybe we're missing from this data? Let me know what you're investing in right now. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.